yesterday. Basically, we started with the very basics of DOM, document object model. We built two small apps. One was the counter and one was a to-do app. Yeah. So I have uploaded both the counter to-do in the DOM folder. So I have shared this link yesterday via email. And if we check this out, so I did split it into two files. And then you can check the code here. And let me just duplicate the tab. Then we build the same to-do app in Vue, right? So you can find that here, app.vue, right? So you can compare this with this and see the difference, right? Then I also sent you two more pages with this, which was the readings. Hopefully you got the chance to read all of them. So this were like fairly not very big pieces of reading, but very important and crucial. So this was related to whatever we did yesterday, right, with Vue. And then there was some practice exercises. Starting day one, there were like, I think, 5 exercises. Don't worry if you are not able to do this fifth one, but it was also very fairly straightforward. And other was adding this color thing. So I also left hint for these two problems because I didn't directly cover this piece. Today we'll cover it in more detail. And this was fairly easy. Cool. So yeah, let's start. So we'll start by building. We'll start from scratch again. And let me just jump to the VueJS docs. So what we are going to build first is this will be the last app before we jump into Frappe UI and other stuff, right? So we are going to build a page where we have an API from which we can fetch the office characters. If you know office, the office, there is a series and we'll display them on page, right? We'll fetch them dynamically and display them. That will be our project. And later on, when we will learn Tailwind CSS, we'll come back and style it. That's the plan. So let's start with quick start. And again, the same command, npm create view at latest. So I want to create a new single page application. Let me just go to Sam. Hopefully this is visible now. And let's create. Cool. Let's give it a project name, Vue Office. No, 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 no. Cool. Vue Office, npm install. So this will install all the dependencies of the project, including Vue itself. Cool. So now we can open it up in VS Code. So here we have like a plain again VueJS project, and we can run npm run dev to start the development server, which will serve this app at this particular address. And you can see this was the default that we got yesterday as well. So what did we do? We looked at index.html. We saw everything starts at main.js, right? That's the only JavaScript file that's linked to our HTML. Yeah, the electricity is here. Nice. Yeah. So what I was saying, we started at like index.html. We saw that there was a main.js file, and then we looked inside the source folder and we found the main.js file. So it imports some CSS file. We won't need it till we do Tailwind, and it imports the app.vue component, which we cleaned up yesterday as well. So let's get rid of everything and bring back our template and our script, right? And we are using composition API. That's why we'll do script setup. Cool. Till here we did yesterday as well, right? But what we want to do today is use an API, fetch data dynamically and show it on the page. So I have written a simple server script that will give us this data, which is at frappe.school/API slash method slash get office. You can even try it out if you want to. And if you see, it returns some JSON, which is basically a key data which contains a list of a few office characters, right? And their images. So it contains two things, their full name and an image. Cool. So that's our task. Let's get back. Put this on the side. Come on. Yeah, much better. So where do we start, right? Let's start by getting the data in, right? We'll worry about displaying it later, but let's get the data and console log it at least, right? So in JavaScript, if you want to do a request on the fly, which are called AJAX request or asynchronous JavaScript requests, we can use the fetch functions. And we give it the request URL. Where do we want to make this request to, or HTTP request to, right? So in our case, it will be, so I will store it in a variable called office API https colon slash slash frappe.school slash API slash method slash get office, right? So now I can fetch office API, right? And then it is a promise, right? So it can take a few seconds or few milliseconds to go and bring this data. And that's why it returns a promise. So I hope you know what promises are. If not, just take a primer. It is like core piece of JavaScript. So we can do then. So it means like when you have fetched the data, then do this. So it returns some data which we can console log. Let's see. Let's go to our JavaScript console. Failed to fetch. Okay. Origin has been blocked. Okay. Cool. That is not equal to the supply. Okay, we have to enable course here. So Louis says I am having a hard time understanding how to use vModel. That we'll see today. No worries. Is there any way to use composition API without npm vue install? No, there is not. And I will tell you why, because it composition API, you can use the setup thing, but still, like, it requires a compilation step. So Vue directly won't process, like, your browser can't directly process Vue files, right? So this, whatever setup we did, or we ran the command, right? Whatever setup happened and what it is doing is it will process each and every .vue file and uh, give you ultimately what a browser can understand, vanilla JS, right? That is what will happen. And that's why without, what do you say? Without the build setup, it won't work. Yeah, what were we doing? Yeah, we were trying to get this API to work, but for some reason it isn't working. What I will do is I will write an API super quick, and I had it in the Frappe School website. Instead, what I will do is I'll move it to my website because I have course enabled there. It would be dangerous to enable it for Frappe School. This is the API, and I will move it to my site. Let's do this like we have time, right? Let's do this properly. Server script. API view course. Yeah, and then we'll say get office, right? So allow guest, and now we'll change the URL from frappe.school to my website platform.build with Hossein .dev. And now we won't need course etc anything because I have course enabled there. Let's check if we got the data back. And indeed we have an object which has the data. Nice. Yeah, as I was saying, we have the data now. I'll share this API link with you in the chat. Yes, just a second. Here is the link. Nice. So no course meant that like from the browser side, it won't check the no course, but from the server side, it still checks the course thing, right? So it is to prevent the injection from the server side. So that is why no course didn't work. The server had to enable it. And for this website, I have enabled it for any website. Like any URL you bring, you will be able to make a request and get the data. Nice. So now we have the data and now we have to render it somehow on the screen, right? So how do we do that? Right. So if think about it, if it were a normal app, right? It were a normal vanilla JS based app, how would you do or how would you render this on the screen? So here at this point you have the data, right? You have the data. This is the point where you would have generated the list and did the DOM manipulation. But this is Vue.js, right? What use if we had to do DOM manipulation? So what we have to do is we have to check. Somewhere we'll have this. So it has to be reactive because then only we will be able to know that when to update the data, right? So here we will say import. We can do reactive, right? Const data equal to reactive, right? And then we can say uh, data, we can call it, okay. I will call it something else. Let's say what can we call it? So this is a good use case for ref because we just want one key, right? We don't want a whole object. So we can say, let's use ref instead. I'll say const data equal to ref. It starts at null, right? There is no data. So whatever you write here, hello, it won't be visible. But as soon as you have the data, which we have at this point, we can say data dot value equal to whatever we got back from the server. Let's refresh and see if it works. Okay, there are no errors, but the weave also doesn't work for some reason. Okay, we are referring to this data. If there is data, let's just refresh the page to see if cool. So there is some issue. Let's figure it out. Please explain the difference between reactive and ref. So yesterday we saw, right, there are two constructs of reactivity that Vue provides. One is reactive, another is ref. Reactive is used when uh, like you want full reactive objects, right? For example, we had this can't be done with reactive. So here in this case, we just want ref false, a boolean, single value, not a object of values, right? Not full object of values. This can't be done with reactive. Reactive expects you to pass in an object. See, the source object. One of the main differences. And in reactive, you have to give some object keys, right? Here you can directly access anything. For example, if I say loading equal to, let loading equal to this. So you can access its value using dot value. So you can make it true. This is what we learned yesterday as well. Same thing if you want to achieve with reactive, you can say let data equal to reactive. And then you will have to have an object which then has false. And then you say data dot loading equal to true. So same thing can be achieved with both of this. There is no issue in then saying that, okay, this will work or this won't work. Both will work, right? Does this make sense now? You can use any one of it, but there are cases where you might want to prefer one over the other. And I will share a link today a comprehensive guide on how to choose between ref and reactive. Does that make sense? So yeah, see, both can achieve the reactivity thing, but see the syntax this and this, right? Here you can then have multiple things, right? Loaded equal to false. But if you want one more loaded, you have to come here and create a new variable. So if you have an object with multiple properties, go with reactive. Otherwise, see ref. Cool. I will get rid of it. Okay. So we have if data dot value. It should work. Cool. Let's do one thing. Because I told you, right? You don't have to do dot value in the template. So let's try to console log this. Oh, see what I did there? So I override the local variable with this variable. So let's change the data, this to message instead. And then this become message. And clearly we have hello on the screen now because the data has already loaded. Nice. So let's close this. And I'll just log the data as is using json.stringify. So this will convert this into a string nicely formatted. See, we have the data on the screen now. Cool. So what do we have on the screen? We have the data and now we can render it, right? Next step is to render it. So I will remove this pre, and since we know the data is inside the key data, right? So we can process it right here. We can say this has to be message.data. See, much better. Now remember v-for, how do you do list rendering? Using v-for. So we'll come here, we'll say, let's render unordered list. That is fine. Let's render an unordered list and then li. We'll say v-for item in data, right? For each item in data, we want to render the full name. Nice. See, we have Michael Spot, Jim Halpert, so on and so forth. And we also have the image, right? So how do we render the image? So in normal static thing, how do you render an image? You have an image HTML tag and you have to give it a source and an alt attribute that is optional, right? For accessibility purposes. So how do we do a dynamic source here? Because in Michael Scott's case, the source will be different. Jim Halpert's case, the source will be different, so on and so forth. This was the same use case that I shared in the assignment yesterday, where the style or the color of the rectangle had to be different for each item. So how do you make this source dynamic? Because if you write directly here item dot, what was it, image, it won't work as is. It will be static item dot image. We can try that. Let's try that. I will move this inside the li tag. And if you see, it will try to import it. See, fail to resolve import this. So it's not treating it like a dynamic variable. This is where the binding comes in. So you want to dynamically bind the source to this variable, right? So for that, we have vbind. Vbind. And if I hit save, you will see the images appear instantly, right? And if you want to look at the image, let me show you by zooming out a bit. See, we have the images. Stanley. Okay. So this is a very important piece that we'll be using again and again, binding dynamic values to attributes. Source is an attribute of image tag, right? So we can use vbind and then Vue will go and treat this as a dynamic value. And whatever is inside this image variable, it will make that as the source of this image, right? And since this is used so much, Vue has a shorthand for this. You can just write the colon and it will still work. You don't have to type the full vbind. Similarly, we had at click, right? which was short for von. Vbind has a short hand as colon. Does this make sense? What did we do? We fetched the data. Initially, the data was null, right? And then we fetched the data, converted it into JSON, and like converted it from JSON to actual JavaScript object. And then we updated the data. So Vue's reactivity kicked in. It saw that, okay, now we have the data. Now I have to go in, now I have to render this list. For each item in this list, I display the full name, which is being displayed here if you see. And then an image with source as the image that we got back from the API. Does this make sense? The project is half done. Yeah, so what was I saying? Now we have this. So there is one thing that can cause an issue is we wrote this fetching directly, right? What if it somehow refers to some value that is not yet loaded, right? This Office API maybe. It is only available when the user gives us or only available from some outside resource. So in simple terms, what I want is, the requirement is, I want to fetch this not when this code is being executed. When this component or the UI or this piece has already been mounted in the UI, right? So think of this as when you have this component, right? This template, Vue will load it in the DOM first, right? For the first time, it will load, right? Before even updating, it will load this thing in the DOM. And we want some piece of code to run after it has already loaded this piece of whatever UI that you have in the browser. That is why we have hooks. So similar to document lifecycle hooks that we have in the backend, for example, before insert, after save, before save, Vue provides us some hooks. And one of that is onMounted. So we can come here and say onMounted. So whenever this thing or app.vue in particular is mounted, run my code. And you can provide your code here. In our case, it will be go and fetch the office characters. Nice. So it doesn't look like anything changed, but it has its own use cases when you want to run your code only after the UI has been loaded, right? Cool. So this was on mounted. There are other as well. So on unmounted, on activated. But yeah, I'll share the docs, just read it through. You will understand what the use case can be for each of them. Nice. So this was lifecycle hooks. Cool. So let's style the images, because what I will do is, let's apply the style. We can apply dynamic styles, but in this case I have static styles, so that is fine. So I'll say height 100 pixels. Fine, much better. And then display lock, so it appears on a new line. And then we want some padding, right? Padding bottom 20 pixels. Already much better than how we started. And let's also do some more things. What we can do is, we can make this strong, which means it will appear in bold, and also apply a padding top. Padding, again, not a design class, so I'll just make it a bit better. That's it. So this is done. So now I want you to imagine this was a big project, right? And this has a variety of things going on in the UI. There is a sidebar, there is a top bar, there is a bottom footer, right? There can be multiple of this. Even a simple this card, right? which looks like this simple li. And when you have a lot of things in the UI, this working on this one single file can become a hassle. And it will be very hard to find where something is being rendered, or where is the data for this piece, what this data actually refers to. You will have to keep track of every variable name somehow, right? That this piece refers to this. This doesn't have to be that way. And two of the most important pieces of any framework like React or Vue, one was reactivity that we learned yesterday. You change the variable or something and the UI updates. The second is component based system, right? So app.view is the component that we mounted. But this is just one component. You can have multiple components, right? And have the parent component use child components, just like the DOM, right? You can have an UL inside the div, and UL has LI. So these are kind of elements, right? We can create our own elements in the sense. You will see in a second. So what I want right now is I want to extract this rendering of this one character into its own component. So I'll give it the data and it will render it on the screen. So for that, we'll start by, we don't need a components folder right now. So let's delete it. In the source, I will create a new file. Let's call it item.view, right? You can call it anything, but .view is required because it's a view component, right? And similarly, it can have also a template, which is the part which will be displayed on the UI, and the script, the logic, right? And then let's say I render something like h1 or h2 item from item.view, right? And then here I can come and import this component, import item from dot slash item.view. It imported, but it is not yet displayed. So we'll have to use this component somewhere, right? So to use this, we use it like normal HTML elements. So I can come here. Let me just delete or comment this out. And then I will say item. See, from item.view. And I can have multiple of this. So I can say one item, two item, three item. See, from item.view, from item.view, from item.view. This is the power, right? And this is where Frappe UI comes in as well. It gives you these components that you can import and use. This is the base, right? So make sure you understand this. And this allows you to encapsulate a lot of logic and make your source code very clean. For example, let me just show you a glimpse of how a production app might look like. So I'll go to Gameplan, which is like a Frappe UI based app. And if I go to the front end folder, this is the Vue app, right? We are working with a Vue app as well, which has an SRC folder. You can guess from here, which has a Vue config. So I'll go inside the source folder and there is a components folder. Just read how many components are there and what they do. There is an activity component. There is an add member dialog. Everything is separate. Assign user component, color picker component, comment editor, comments area, comments list, cover image. Everything is distributed into its own component. And then you bring these pieces together to build the whole UI, right? Mobile layout is a separate component, right? So you on the fly, you can swap components as well. Poll is a separate component. Reactions is a separate component. And if I open any one of this, you will see Faris likes options API. So this is how you use options API, right? Methods, which we learned about yesterday in options API. So not just the UI of reactions is here, but the logic is also encapsulated with the component. So let's do one thing in our UI, right? what I will do is, I want app.view to be as clean as possible. I will create one more component. Oh, wait, let's just first complete this one. So I want item to be rendered, right? And if it has no, what do you say, data that you need to pass here, you can directly have it self-closing, just like a image tag, right? So what I want is, I want this item to render my data. I will give it the data. I will give it the full name. Let's say full name equal to full name, dot full name, and I want to give it the image. So I want to give this component the responsibility to render it. I'll give it the data, right? That's what I'm doing right now. Image. And I told you, right? If you give it normally like this, it will treat it as a normal string. So how do we make sure it is correctly getting the value of the variable and not the string? We just learned binding. And what is the shortcut for this? Yeah, just this. So that's why as soon as you do the binding, you will see the syntax highlighting also changes, right? So now the name is dynamically bound to the full name that we are passing, and it has to be the for loop. So let's say v for item in data, right? Makes sense? So it's rendering for each item, it is rendering this component, and this component is just printing from item.view. So it looks like it is rendering for each, but not using any data. So how do we make sure we catch this name and image here, right? So that is why we have props. These are called props, and you can, whatever you are passing here, right? These are props for this component, and this component can catch these props, right? Think of them as arguments to the function, right? When you have a function, you pass in arguments, and that function uses the arguments to do the computation. Similarly, the component has properties, props, right? Which you are passing from here. And this, just like a function, can catch those and use them to do its work. So to do that, we have to say define props, right? And what all props are you expecting, right? Similarly, in the function signature, we say, right, A, B, C we want, and then we return the sum of this. And we can say, I want, let's say, name, right? Which will be a string. You can also give the type. So it will throw a warning if you pass some other thing. And we want image, which will also be a string, right? And store it inside props. And then you can refer it in the component. You can say props.name. Okay. What did I do? This. So to nice. So we have our very first component, and it prints the name at least. Now it is easy. You just bring this image here, and instead of item.image, it will be props.image, which are this, which we are getting from here. I will remove this part, and you can make this li if you want to. Nice. Make sense? What did we do? This is the power, right? We encapsulated the rendering of item to someplace else. The template is succinct, it is smaller, and when you want to edit this particular one component, right, one uh, rendering of this card, maybe you are using it somewhere else. So this increases reusability as well. So you can import item wherever you want. Maybe in the footer you want to render 3 characters. Just import this item, give it the data, it will render it for you, right? So code is reusable. So you will see this pattern over and over again in production apps. So keep this in mind. When you are building your own apps as well, think of them as built of building blocks, right? So when you are building a footer, just make it a separate component and write all your logic there, right? You might want to pass in the data from the parent. This is called this is called the child component, the item, and this is called wherever you are using this component is called the parent, right? So app.view is the parent, and it has item and multiple of this since we are using v for. Nice, makes sense. Clear till now? This was basics of components. Awesome. So if you understand reactivity components, you can go and pick any front-end framework and you will be fine. Cool, 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 cool. Can you show again item.view? So yeah, every view component has same template, script, and an optional uh, style as well. So we can just move this. This looks ugly, right? We can just move this piece, right, to a style block. I'll give it a class, let's say office image. Paste the, okay, what did I do? Style, and you can write scoped. So it is scoped to this component, right? It won't affect any global style. Yeah. So I moved it here. And now I will apply this class here. Office image. See? Nice, right? So now this component is encapsulated. Let's do one more thing. I want my app.view to be as clean as possible. So maybe I added a header here, right? Let's add a header. It has a navigation, let's say. UL line home about, right? Consider this is the navigation bar, right? So this can be a separate component and this can be a separate component. Let's extract it out. So Hemant says, so the child can also get other, wait, scroll down. Also get other data from what you provided from parent. Yes. So it can have its own state, right? Since this is also script setup. So you can again import reactive, ref, anything. All components are same. So now I want to extract this piece as well, the rendering of the list itself. So I'll go and create one more, let's say uh, list.view, right? In normal use cases, you will have more specific names like character list or office character list, so on and so forth. Let's create one more component. Again, template, script, right? And I will move this piece, the list piece here, and its logic as well. So we'll see how clean app.view will become. And we'll have to do setup. And this all also goes to list.view, right? And now app.view just has to import the list from dot slash list.view, right? And render it here. See? Makes sense? So see, app.view is so clean. Now, like you can go and do whatever you want here. Extract the header component, extract, like don't overdo this. Just make sure you're doing it in simple, sizable chunks and which makes sense, right? This makes sense because this is in itself a unit where I can reuse it. So if I want the list twice, I can just copy and have it twice. So see, it will be rendered twice. If I add a horizontal rule here, somewhere you will see, yeah, see here the horizontal rule and then again the list. So this becomes reusable. Nice. So then list uses the item, right? So you can imagine a tree. There is app.view. Inside that, there are two components that you can create. Maybe one is the header and then one is the list itself, right? And list uses item for rendering. It has its own logic and everything. Still works. This was basics of components. Cool. What's on agenda today? Let's see. So I will share some readings regarding components. Please read them and we'll proceed tomorrow in the components piece of things. Yeah, let's start with Tailwind CSS. This was like an introduction to all the foundations that you might need in VueJS, right? And if you visit the, let's say, new window, full screen, VueJS quick start, and you have a glimpse at the essentials, you will see we covered almost all of them, right? We covered how to create an application, which was create app, and then we mounted it. So Prashant says, what is scoped? Okay, answered. Nice. Reactivity fundamentals. We didn't see computed properties, that we'll see. Class and style bindings, we saw the bindings, right? This is just an extension. So in classes and styles, you have some extra things you can do. Conditional rendering using VIF, VElse. There is VElse if as well, by the way. See, VElse if. So there is an example, VIF type A, render this div, else if render this, else if render this, else render this. List rendering we saw, right? V for item in items, then you can do this. Event handling we saw. On click, if we want to do something, then we can use that click. Form input bindings. So I think, who was saying this? I think Lewis was asking, right? About V model. This piece you are not able to make sense of. So in some frameworks, it is called a two-way binding, right? So what happens is when you have, let's say, an input, let's go to app.vue and write here itself, un input, right? And then you say, like, its value is bound to nothing as of now. So if you type anything, the data is not stored, right? We want it to store in a variable, reactive variable. In that case, we create a reactive variable. Let's say import ref, and I will say const my value equal to ref empty string. So now I have a variable, right? A reactive variable, and I have the component, but these are not linked right now. I want the inputs value to be linked to this variable, right? And whenever any of one changes, I want them to be kept in sync both ways. That is why two-way binding. Both ways means when the input changes, the variable has to change. And when the variable changes, the input has to change. For example, when I say ABCD here, the ABCD should come up here. This is where V model comes in. So V model, this only works in input, by the way. V model, you can't go around in H1 and say V model it to something else. No, 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 no. This is for binding to inputs. You can write your own V model as well for your custom components. That's out of scope of this particular course, but possible and not very complicated. Nothing in Vue is very tough. Even the hardest of the concepts are like fairly straightforward. They have kept the API so nice and clean that it is nice. So when I do this V model and I say my value, see how we don't have to do this binding because V model is itself smart. It won't be bound to a string. So now you see ABCD appeared instantly, right? And if you change this, the variable will also change. And how do we look? How do we see if it is changing or not? So Vue provides us a watcher that can watch something for you and will tell you when that thing changes, right? So watch, I have imported watch and I will say watch, and you have to tell what do I have to watch. So in this case, I want you to watch this variable. It has to be reactive, by the way. Otherwise, it won't be able to watch, right? And run this piece of code when my value changes. My value changed, right? So now if I open JavaScript console, right? When I change this, see, at every keystroke, it is saying my value changed because it's being changed, right? So watchers are very useful when you want to do some side effect based on changes. So think behind the scenes, Vue is also watching your variables, right? Then only it is able to update the UI. Maybe you want to do something else as well. Maybe as you will ask the user for the URL to where you want to fetch the list from, right? This can be, let's take very good example. So in Frappe, right? In Frappe, we have a dynamic link. Do you remember? There is a dynamic link field which has a doc type here and then the document. So depending on what doc type you select, the other input is a link field to that doc type. So for example, when you select to do, right? So for example, this can be the, let's say, doc type. And then you have one more input. Let's take a good example. This can be document. I'll create a ref for it as well. Right? And whenever doc type changes, I want this to change. In that case, I can watch the doc type, right? And here I can say update the list of documents. Make sense? Good use case. So you are watching for something to change or get updated, and then you are triggering your effect, right? This is very useful. Watch. Again, I will share the reading for further things, but this is nice. Cool, cool. So when I change this, it will also give you the old value and the new value optionally if you want to use them. So you can check what was it changed from, right? So you can see old value, new value, or is the other way around? We'll find out. A, B, C, D. C. It's the opposite. So new value is this, and old value is this. Cool. So experiment, you will find out a lot of things. So while learning, right, watch is very, very useful. So you can attach a washer to your reactive object or to your ref and see how it changes when you interact with your UI. Very useful. So thanks, Louis, for asking this question because this led to the watch thing and it was nice. Any doubts in watch before we proceed to Tailwind? Cool, cool. Today I didn't bring water, so we'll take the break sooner. But yeah, that's that. Cool. So Wasim says, an oral example of watchers, like where can we use this in production apps? Okay, where can we use this in production apps? I'm taking Gameplan as an example. So I will recommend you do this. Just open it, open any Frappe UI app or VueJS based app. Ultimately, Frappe UI is not like really magical, right? It built on top of Vue, so you will be able to understand the code now. So I have opened up Gameplan in the browser. Let's see. Let me just theme. Don't they allow dark theme? Theme. Okay. So you see front end. It is the VueJS app. And I will global search for watch. Okay. See, use local storage. Don't worry about it. But Faris is using the watcher to see if a value is changing. And as it is changing, it is being updated in the browser's local storage. right? So Francis says you can use it to saving drafts. This exactly. So whenever you write a post in Gameplan, it behind the scenes saves it in browser storage, because accidentally you might refresh the page and your whole post might go away, right? It doesn't. Try out, like, very useful. And you'll find more examples in other apps. So if instead of Gameplan you open up Insights. So yeah, we'll dig deeper. At the very end, we'll look at how these apps are structured, some good patterns, etc., etc. But let's move to Tailwind if there are no other doubts. So I will open up frontend. Okay, let's search for watch. Okay, see, it is watching if escape is being pressed, right? And whenever the escape key gets pressed, it is closing the command palette. Let's see some more. A lot of examples. So if is public value changes, right? He is going and fetching the key from the backend. So this, I think, is related to the feature where you can share dashboards in Insights. It generates a link, right? So maybe somewhere when you click make it public, this thing is watching it and then going in the backend and generating a share link for you. Lot of use cases. Just know that whenever you want some logic to run when a variable changes, reactivity, right? You want to react yourself, not just the DOM. What do you say? VueJS taking care of the DOM, right? Updating the DOM, doing this and that. But sometimes you also want to do your own stuff when things change. This is where watch comes in. There is also one more watch effect that is a tiny bit different from watch. It For the first time it will automatically run without even variable changing. So I will. Gushin, can you share this page, watchers, in the chat? Read it. Now you will clearly understand what's happening. Cool. Enough with Office now. Cool, 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 cool. Tailwind, Tailwind, Tailwind. Let's close this, close this. Let's go to. So, whenever you want to learn something new, where do you start? It's website, right? It's documentation. Let's start there. So, rapidly build modern websites without ever leaving your HTML, right? So this should give a hint where it will be, where we will be writing this thing in the HTML, right? Itself. We don't have to go or create a new CSS file to write our styles and link them in our HTML. In the HTML itself, we will write them. For example, in VueJS also, we were writing V bind, everything in the HTML or the template itself. So yeah. So what Tailwind CSS is, it's a utility first uh, CSS library or framework, right? Utility first in the sense, so you might have known Bootstrap, right? Bootstrap is the popular one. Bootstrap, which we use in the current desk as well. So what does Bootstrap give you, right? Bootstrap gives you, so if you go to the documentation, just see what it gives you. It gives you components, pre-styled components, right? So you can have a button, tell it that, let's just I want to open something else. Let's open a new text file. So when you have a button, right? I'm giving an example of Bootstrap. You just come here and you say class equal to btn primary, and it will nicely style it as a button. Make sense? And it will give you all the properties and hover and everything. Tailwind is not that. It's not a component or CSS component library, right? It will give you utility classes so you can style your own button, like BG, gray, padding 2, right? So you are not writing it inside a style tag or styles. You're directly writing the classes in HTML, and Tailwind will behind the scene generate these classes. So you can think of it as like it will be generating background color, some form of gray, then padding 2. So you can define what 2 is in Tailwind. I think this is 2 in steps of 4 pixels. So it might be 8 pixels, or usually it is EM units. So this will happen behind the scenes, and this button will get this styles, right? So you are not writing your styles on your own. Tailwind will behind the scenes use these classes to generate those styles. So you don't have to write those, but it's very fast. So we'll take one example and you will get what I'm speaking. But let's go back to Tailwind and utility first fundamentals, right? So using a traditional approach where custom designs require custom CSS, right? So you have chat notification, same as I was saying, like you create these styles, like Bootstrap has created them for you. You just apply classes and everything works, right? In contrast, in Tailwind, right, you have utility classes. Again, to repeat, padding 6, max width SM. So SM, there are units that Tailwind has defined. So SM might be 240 pixel, let's say, right? So that you can configure. There is a configuration file where you can say SM is this, LG is this, so on and so forth. You can even say white is some off white that you want to choose, or gray is something else. So that is that. In the above example, we have used Tailwind's Flexbox and padding utilities. So how do you apply Flexbox in normal CSS, right? So you go to your styles and you say display flex. Here you just come and say wherever you want to apply it, you just work with classes. So Tailwind is all about classes. So you can just say flex and it will apply display flex. Are you getting my point? We are going to do hands-on, but let me just give you a brief first. Is it clear? The utility first thing. So you are getting utility classes and not component classes, or the whole thing gets styled, right? You apply one BTN class and it brings a lot of other things. It brings the padding, it brings the hover state and everything. Here, one utility will give you just one thing. It will just change the background to gray. P2 will just apply padding to 8 pixels to all the 4 sides, right? Just saying 8 pixels. I don't remember exactly what 2 is here, but this is where you start. So you can see a lot of items in this sidebar. So for example, if you want to see what all things or classes or pattern of classes are available in Tailwind when you want to work with font size, just open up font size and you will see this has this classes. And when you say text access, by default, it refers to 12 pixels or 0.75 rem, right? Text SM, this, that. So let's jump to the playground, play around and we'll see. So just go to Tailwind website and click on playground. See, it will give you delete everything, right? Just have an empty div. In browser, it will give you an editor where you can write your Tailwind stuff. Let's just zoom in, right? Everyone on the same page? Just open up Tailwind Play. Yeah, so we have a div. Let's have an H1. This, okay, build with Sam, self-promotion. So you will notice one more thing. This is about me. Both the texts look same. See? So when we will do the local setup as well. So Kitty says, how can the project know we are using Tailwind and not normal CSS? You will know. You will know because check the dependencies of the project, whether they have installed Tailwind CSS We'll do the same with when we integrate Tailwind in our Vue project. There is a config file, Tailwind config.js file. If that is present, you can guess that, okay, this project is using Tailwind. All of our projects use Tailwind, except the old desk, of course. So you will see that this two look the same, right? But when I do this same thing in vanilla normal CSS or what do you say, HTML CSS, H1 is rendered in bold, P is rendered in some other thing. So what Tailwind does is it resets all of those. It brings everything to normal, like no styles whatsoever, no browser styles or no user agent styles, right? So it will rip off everything. That is why you don't have a default H1 style or a P style, or even this will be even more profound. Just create an ordered list. Let's say banana. Even lists don't have style, right? When we were working with list, it had a 1, 2, 3, or if you do UL, it had a bulleted point, right? So Tailwind removes everything, so you have a clean canvas. You are not fighting with the existing styles and you are starting from scratch. Does this make sense? So it resets or normalizes the CSS. Cool. Banana, apple. That's fine. So every text is looking the same because it has reset all the default styles. Now it's up to us to style it. Cool. So let's do some more. I will add a nav here. UL, li, home. I will make it an anchor tag, which means a link, right? I'll copy this. Let's say href. Even links don't have style. See, it is looking same as everything else because it is resetting it. And this is very good because when you are implementing your own custom front end, right, you don't want to fight or manually reset every style that browser comes out of the box with. So Tailwind does that for you out of the box. So let's say home, about, products, right? So right now there is no way uh, until you hover to see that these are links or this is simple text, right? So now we have the nav bar, we have the div. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's start styling. So what I want is this three links to appear in a single row. So we'll use flex. So this is all about classes. You don't have to leave your HTML. That is what they said, right? And they said it correct. So I will say flex. See, all three came in the same line. I want space X. All of this list you can find in the documentation. So this will apply the flex, display flex. So if you hover over it, right, you will see what it generated behind the scene. This is very useful. Even in VS Code, they have an extension which shows this, what behind the scenes styles it will apply. Space X, we want some gutter, right, between this three links. So we can say space X3. See, not the SpaceX company from Elon Musk, but yeah, you have the space. And let's apply padding. Oh, let's do margin 2. See, much better. And since these are links, we want to have them in some color, right? So we can come to each link and apply the class. So let's say home as a text. So out of the box, it comes with some colors. Let me show you the color palette, and it is very nice. Even if you don't want to work with your own color palette, the out of the box color palette is so beautiful and vibrant. Let's see, where is the color? Hmm. Color. Hmm. Colors. This is the default color palette they have. Slate, gray, zinc. So we can use this. So I like sky. Emerald. Emerald is good. So now you can come here and you can say, I want this text to be text emerald, right? It auto completes. And you have in emerald, you have different shades. See, so I want emerald 500. So the text of this link will become of this color. Nice. So the other two links I can make a little darker version of this text emerald. So you can pick one color and stick to the theme. Nice. I'll copy this class. Go to this thing. Nice. And you can apply hover classes as well. So in hover, maybe I want this to be lighter, right? So I can say hover, right? And then text emerald 400. And if you hover, see, it becomes emerald 400. You can apply animations. Let's say transition colors, and it's smooth now. So if you see, smoothly transitions to that color. This is why Tailwind is powerful. It also comes out of the box with very sane defaults and very uh, good color palette, spacing utilities. So when I said M2, it applied 0.5 rem. M3, see, it applied 0.75 rem. So you don't have to think about each and every pixel, right? That's also very powerful. So Gopi says it's like having a magic wardrobe where every piece fits perfectly. No more messing around with mismatched style. Just pick what you need and your HTML looks awesome instantly. Yeah, it is like I have seen it. Alexandra says, I think I have fallen in love with Tailwind. Nice. It is good. It is like once I started using it, I can't go back and write your Bootstrap styled classes or anything in between. It is nice. Kitty says we need to define classes in every HTML element. Good question. Can't we apply the same with all? For example, if you want to apply the same style to H1, you can still write your style sheets, right? They are still there. They are not gone anywhere. So you can come here and say, so don't worry about the above 3 lines. I'll explain. Wait, font size 30 pixel. This still works, right? So you can override what Tailwind does as well. But I don't want it right now. It is there. And there is one more thing you can use called apply. Extracting classes. So for example, there are 10 classes, right? And you want to extract it into BTN primary. Then you can do this. Again, I can share this in the chat. So reusing set of classes. Tailwind has ways around that. You can even theme. Cool. So let's continue our styling. The links look good, but let's apply some margin to this guy as well. So I will apply M3. So now see, I'm not working with exactly magic numbers. If I apply M3 here and M3 here, this is aligned and everything looks good. Nice. Let's go here and I will say class. Maybe I want font serif, right? Serif font. I want it to be bold, font bold. So it has font utilities as well. And then text gray 800, right? Font size I want to increase. So text large font or maybe Excel, right? Excel is in 2XL. Nice. So let's give some space and then I will style the paragraph. So I don't want the paragraph to be too big. So text, let's say what all utilities are available for text. We can go to the docs again and search for text. or we can search for font. See font style. So you can say italic, so it will be italic. So let's say if I say italic, it will become italic. Nice. Font. So font and text, there are two main things. Text gray 600, right? Sans serif doesn't look good. Let's just remove this class. Oh, it was looking good. Nice. So this is the whole approach of working with Tailwind. And when you combine this with the components in Vue, you get Frappe UI. So it has a lot of utilities for everything that is CSS related. So I will show you a few more. Then we will integrate Tailwind in our Vue project and style our to do or the project that we did this morning. It's already 12. It's probably, yeah. It has background size, background image, and it will give you what classes and what properties it will generate, right? Gradient color stops. See, a lot of advanced stuff as well. So if you hover, so there are really good examples in this documentation. I will recommend, like, you bookmark Tailwind CSS, you bookmark VueJS docs, and you'll be good to go. Let's say divide, right? So divide. So if you want to divide some things, so let's try divide. Let's say I have an unordered list, li apple, banana, and I want to divide this. So I can come here. I can say, so you will only, so I remember a lot of it because I've worked with it a lot. So as you work, you will remember some of the most important classes and their patterns. And then there is autocomplete as well. So you can say divide, we want divide y. So see, and then you can even have divide color, which will be emerald 500. And once you add a new list, let's say papaya, and let's add margin 4, right? Padding 1. Oh, padding can be added to each list item as well. Space y 2. Nice. Got the idea of Tailwind. That's what I am not going to teach you how to style with Tailwind. Not how to make things look good with Tailwind, but I'm going to give you an idea of how Tailwind or how to think about going to write classes in Tailwind. This is the approach, right? And this very well works with Figma as well. So you want to check. There was a podcast series I did with Faris where he brought a Figma design to component using Tailwind. Cool. Any doubts till now? Let's take a 10-minute break, shall we? So Wasim says, like, there are multiple status and I have to change the color of background of status. How can we implement this? This is what I meant. Okay, let's do that. So you meant dynamically applying those classes. Okay, got it. Yeah, that's the first thing we will do when we integrate with Vue. We'll see two approaches and then. So now our step would be to integrate it in our VueJS project, right? So we already have this Vue office. We'll reuse this and we will go to the installation and we'll go to framework guides and Vite, right? This is what we are using, Vite. So let's click on it. First, create your project. I think we already have our project, right? Install Tailwind CSS. Let's start here. So npm install -d. Goshin can share the link if you want to follow along. So I'll come here in my terminal. I will run this. So this will install the Tailwind CSS CLI and its core dependencies. Nice. Then the second line, this will initialize Tailwind for this project. See, it created two files. One was tailwind.config.js, as I was saying, right? The second is postconfig.js. Mostly you don't have to worry about this one. And let's open up Tailwind config. You will see there are some type hints, and then there is this object they're exporting, content, theme, and plugins. So Tailwind has plugin functionality as well. So you can check out the docs if you want to. And content and themes is mostly for extending or overriding things that come out of the box. Maybe padding 2, you want it to be 24 pixels instead of the default one, right? Maybe font XL, you want it to be 32 pixels instead of the default one. All of that override and extend, you can do it here, right? Maybe you want to have a shade of emerald that is not coming out of the box. Maybe it is between 800 and 900, right? It is 850. You can do that using the theme. A lot of things can be done using this, even dark mode. So all of that is in the documentations, just read over it. Content, right? So let's go to using Vue. And if you see, it says add the paths of your all your template files in config. So why, right? This is empty currently, right? Why do we add the content? Because Tailwind has to know where are you using those classes, in which files, and what classes you are using, so that it can generate styles for them, right? Ultimately, browser won't understand Tailwind CSS, right? It has to have CSS files. So you have to tell where you are keeping or where you are going to use Tailwind CSS classes. So they have given a good hint that you might want to add these two lines. Let me add and I will explain. So anywhere in the index.html and in any file, any Vue, JavaScript, TypeScript, JSX, TSX file inside the source folder, nested, right? Anywhere in this. So Tailwind will look for the CSS classes or the usage of Tailwind in these files, right? So this covers it up because mostly we will be using it inside our Vue files, but just to be safe, you can do this. Works. Cool. Let's go back. Let's see. Add the step 4. Add the Tailwind directory to your CSS. So we don't have any CSS file. So let's create a CSS file in our source. Let's call it, you can call it anything. I'll call it main.css. And they are asking to add these 3 lines, right? Let's add these 3 lines. Don't worry about what this do. This allow you to bring in the actual Tailwind thing into your main.css. So this will get replaced when Tailwind processes this. I'll show you the processed file as well, right? With some stuff, some actual CSS, right? What's the next step? We want to import it, right? We want to import it in main.js. Let's import dot slash main.css. Cool. Let's see if there are other steps. Run your build process. Okay, we are already running, I guess. Shall we restart? Let's just restart this. Yeah, let's open it up. And you will clearly see all our styles are gone, which means Tailwind is working. All our default styles are gone, right? We had like the list styles and everything is gone. Cool. So Tailwind is working. And we can be sure if I go to app.view, let's remove list and everything. Even this we don't need, right? And just to try out, this is my test. Always this is my test for checking if Tailwind is working or not. Right. Hello Tailwind. And then I apply text blue 500, font bold, text to Excel. Nice. Tailwind is working. Easy setup. There is nothing much. You already have the build process in place. You just have to follow this page. And this is a one-time process, by the way. Once you have this in your project, that's it. Done. You don't have to do anything. Cool. Done. We have Tailwind in our Vue project now. Make sense? So what do we do to learn this, right? Let's create a badge component. Badge. When you see, where can you see badges? Everywhere. So even Frappe Cloud frontend is Frappe UI, right? So you can see this badge. Let me switch to my team. See, update available. This is a badge, and this can be different colors depending on the state. So let's make a badge component so we can learn Tailwind with Vue, right? So I will delete this. I'll create a badge.view, right? Here we'll have the template. The more Vue components you write, the better you will get. That's for sure. Nice. Template, script, and we need some props, which will be the status. So let's say const props equal to define props. We just want one thing, status, which will be a string. And depending on the status, we will decide the color, etc. etc. For now, I will just add a span, or let's add a div props dot status. See, we get type completion as well. So we are not using this component anywhere. Let's import it. Import badge from dot slash badge dot view, and let's use it here. We want the status equal to, let's say, active. Let's model the active one first. See, the active is now visible here. It is not styled, but that is what we are going to do, right? So we have the badge component, we're using it somewhere, and now we want to style it, right? So let's start. Class, let's say text green 900, or let's do 800. BG, which means background green 700. Oh, too much. 5, 400. Nice, looks nice, but we don't want it to take full width. Content fit. No, content fit all. Wait, I'll say flex. Content. Oh, wait. Width fit. Sorry. Yeah. So width fit will make sure that it takes the width just to fit the content it has it. Let's add padding 2, right? Let's do one thing. In the whole thing, I'll wrap it in a div. So it is not touching the corner. Margin 5. Nice. Now what we'll do is we want the rounded corners, right? So how do we get the rounded corners? Let's check the docs. Let's search for rounded border radius. Yeah. So we have the rounded class. So rounded MD, rounded LG, and rounded full, which means 100%. And you can see there are others as well, and what values they will apply. You can round specific sides as well. So if you want start, right? There are a lot of them. And top, right, bottom, each side radius you can control. And here is the docs. We don't want that. Like all sides should be same in our case. So let's go back. And I will say rounded MD. No, doesn't look good. If we do rounded full, still not good. Rounded to Excel. Ah, so I know why it doesn't look good, because padding is same all across, and in general in badges you have more padding on the sides than on the top. So let's do px2 py1. Nice. Let's say text access. Nice. Font is semi-bold. Nice. So our badge looks good, right? If I zoom in even further, this is good. This is fine. We can play with the colors, maybe 700, and then this can become 300. Much better. So it depends on what style you are going for, right? But now we want to change the color based on the status. So here I will define a JavaScript object. Let's say status to color, right? So active should be green, right? Inactive should be red, right? We want to make this badge do the deciding of the color, right? Then we have paid, which is always green. Then what else? Unpaid, orange, so on and so forth. Like you can do this. Pending. Yeah. Pending can be yellow. Let's see. So now when we get the props, right, we want to get the badge color from the status, right? So this is where we will use a feature of Vue called computed properties, right? So what computed properties are? Uh, props is dynamic, by the way. So when the parent will change the props, right? Say here you have a active and you change it to inactive. This will be re-rendered. So Vue will go, the reactivity system will kick in and re-render the badge to match the status, right? So when this status changes, we want to have the color belonging to that status, right? We can't just do this. So let's say const color or equal to status to color props dot status. So if you try to do this and let's say color, it is red, right? But when I go and change this to active, still red. See, that's what I meant by normal variables and reactivity. It is not reactive. Color is not reactive. It is only set once and that's it. It is not reacting to the changes of status. Makes sense? So when the status changed, this didn't change automatically, but it should, right? It should. So this is where you can have properties. So color is in itself is not a thing that you can set, right? Color is decided based on the status. It is based on the status property that the color will be calculated or computed. This is where computed comes in. So I will import computed from Vue, and I can come down here. I can say color equal to computed, right? And it takes a function, and whatever you return from here will be the value of this thing. So I'll just comment this out. I will return this same thing here. Now notice it is green. When I go back and change it to inactive, it becomes red. See? Now it is, we can use watch as well. But this is much better syntax, right? Watch, you have to create a ref variable and people will be able to set it. But color is nothing to be set directly, right? You can use watch, but then you will have to be careful. Prashant says, can we use watch here? Imagine how would you use it? You will still need some variable to store it, right? Then you will use reactive or ref, and then you will be able to set it. But we should not be able to set it. It's just a read-only thing, right? Color is not something that the developer should be able to set. It is computed based on the status. And since you are using the status here, Vue will know that whenever the status changes, I have to compute it again. Does this make sense? So a good analogy of this will be, okay, what can be a good analogy to this computed? Hmm. If it comes to mind, I will share. I forgot it, but yeah. Difference with ref. Difference of this with ref. So ref is for storing as well as getting, right? This computed is just a read-only thing. You can read it. You can't go and say that uh, color equal to color dot value equal to something else, right? You can't do this. Ref is read write. Computed is read only, but it is reactive. So based on whatever you are using here, it will react and change. Does this make sense? Yeah, cool. So yeah, now we have the color. So how do we map this color to a Tailwind class? Yeah, Kitty, exactly. That is what I was going to recall. This is related to virtual field. We have virtual field in framework, right? So when it is not actually, so for example, when you are saying full name, it is a combination of first name and last name. So whenever first name or last name change, full name changes, right? That's a good analogy. Cool. But now we have to implement this in Tailwind. So a good pattern is to have color to classes. We'll say that green, what classes to apply, red, what Tailwind classes to apply, orange, what Tailwind classes to apply, yellow, what Tailwind classes to apply, right? And then you can come here and let's just delete this part. And I don't want to apply this two classes out of the box, right? Because these are hard coded. So to apply dynamic classes, you use vbind, or for short, this, and it takes, right, not a string, but a list of strings. What did I do? Okay, wait. Quotation problem. Nice. So now I have a list. And now dynamically, so these are common for all, right? This, flex, padding, text, this all is common. Just the colors are different. So here you can come and say color to classes of the color, right? So what are we doing? Let's add green, which was text green 700, BG green 300, was it? And then we can do the same. I'll explain what am I doing and why you can't do what you are thinking you will do. Let's do orange. I don't know if there is orange here in Tailwind. Anyways, let's do it. Yellow, yellow, amber. Yeah, amber is there. Nice. So what am I doing? I provided a class as a list, not as a string. and it will apply all of this. But when it comes to here, it is dynamic, right? It will go to this dictionary, right? And see the color, which is indeed calculated from the status. So first it will calculate, okay, inactive is red, and then red color has these two classes to be applied, and then it will apply it to this div. Now, if I go and change this to active, see green, to pending, yellow. Nice. Does this make sense? What did I do? So this is what we didn't cover. This is specially for classes. When you use vbind with class, right? It lets you define a list as well as a object, by the way, which you will read in the docs. Is this clear what we did? We created our own batch component, right? Dynamic styles, this is how dynamic classes, this is how apply. Don't try this, right? Don't try this. Like, I am sure I have tried this, and you will sometime try this. And I will tell you why this won't work. This should work, right? This should work. But Tailwind won't be able to figure out what this is. The class name should be exact for the Tailwind compiler to compile this and generate classes for you. So that is why we did it in this way, because Tailwind will read each and every class and generate. It doesn't know what you are dynamic interpolation you are doing, right? That is why the classes need to be exact. Make sense why you shouldn't do this? Because it will come here and see, okay, what is this dollar sign color and this and that? This we know. Tailwind doesn't. We know because we are executing. It is blindly taking this file as a string and compiling it. Gurshin says everyone has tried this at least once. Yeah. Cool. So this was making a badge component. And we'll see how much mehnat or hard work it is there to create one single components, right? That is why things like component libraries exist. So you don't have to model pixel perfect each and every component. But yeah, we were able to create a component. You learned a few things about component. One more thing I will complete before we wind up this component is you might have seen that when you have a button, right? Again, unstyled because Tailwind. So BG slate 800 text white, right? Padding 2 rounded. See how fast we can get to a good looking button. Too much. PX2, PY1. Yeah, much better. But you will see, I'm not passing this click as a prop, right? This is not a prop. While status, we are passing as a prop. Wouldn't it be better if we can use badge like this? Some might prefer this, right? You just give it the status inside as a text. This can be useful in cases where you have some dialog box, right? You make a dialog component, which we'll see in Tailwind, FrappeUI, and you want some body directly here, right? You don't want to pass it as prop. These are called slots. So whatever goes inside this thing, right? Inside the component tags, this is called slots that you can access inside your batch. Let's do that. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of the button. And I want this to work. So let's say inactive. So where do you start? VueJS docs, and we come here to component basics, content with slots. See it, they also given an example, alert box, something bad happened, right? Not passing it as prop, but as the content of the element. So you just have to slot, right? There is a special element which you can use here, slot. See, inactive came. Nice, right? But yeah, I won't go much deeper into this. You can access slots, full guide on slots. Let's read it. So slot is like, this is the place it will keep empty. And when the parent passes anything inside it, it will just replace this slot part with the status. That's it. See, nice diagram. So you have a slot in the button, and when you right click me, right, it will be replaced wherever you have written the slot. So final rendered DOM will look like this. So if you want to access the slot, where is it? $sign slots, got it. So somehow, if I can render $sign slots dot default here, wait, it's a function. Broken now. So I'm looking out for a way where you can dynamically access the slot, because we have to assign the color, right? Let's see. Yeah, let it be. We'll see it maybe later. But you get the idea of what it does. Cool. Slots let you do this. But yeah, let's also try the yellow one. What was it? Yeah, it is yellow. So unpaid. Ember. Nice. So yeah, any doubts till now? We integrated Vue or Tailwind in our Vue project. And now we can make components like this, and they have like, you don't need the style tag. That is why mostly you won't find the style thing here when you use Tailwind. But yeah, this wraps up basics of Tailwind and combining Tailwind with so Gurshin says maybe we can use dynamic slot names or slot props. I think dynamic slot names can be used, but I don't know. So what I'm trying to achieve should be achievable with the default slot. Access slot in view composition API. Oh, nice. See, thanks. This was the nectar I needed. Okay. Use slots. Google search, right? Google search is the most important thing in a software engineer's career. Won't be an overstatement, is it? Okay. Slots. equal to use slots. And then we can access the children using this. Let's console log it for now. And I will increment this. And let's see. Inactive. Yes, we have access to it. So now you can assign the color and do whatever you want. So instead of this, we'll have the slot. And for the color to classes, the color will be calculated not based on the prop, but this thing here. Yeah, we were able to do this. And then this will be children. And then we can remove this part, console.log as well, hit save. Come on. Let's console.log color. Okay, it's a computed thing. I think dot value. Oh no, I am printing the wrong thing. Inactive. Okay. Inactive is not there. It is there, right? It should be red. Weird. Hmm. Hmm. Undefined. Okay. No. Why isn't it working? Should work. By the way, the class is almost case sensitive. Yeah, it is case sensitive, right? Inactive. Oh, maybe the spaces. I'll tell you why. Let's see. So if I do this, right? Let's try this. Maybe inactive has spaces around it. That is why. H. H. See, notice it has spaces around it. So we have to strip it somehow. Strip. Strip. Strip doesn't work. What is there then? In JavaScript, how do you clean a string? Trim. Okay. See, it works now. Trim, strip in Python. Yeah, this is like you go and you have to figure out, right? Like, but yeah, this was a good exercise, I guess. So what did we do? We converted it from using props, so no longer need the props, to using slots. So slots as in we pass the text directly in here, right? Make sense? So you learned something new as well. So we could have done this. So since we were not getting the correct color, the usual approach would be to create a watcher which watches the color, and whenever it changes, it console.log the color, right? Color. Not a value. See, change to red, change to green. So watchers are good. Cool. So this wraps up today's class. So if you have any doubts, like we have 5 minutes, we'll take them. Will there be a session on how to build app like Frappe Insights, Frappe CRM? Not app like, because it takes months and hours of work to build some stuff like that. But we will build a small e-commerce plus checkout thing, which will give you a rough idea of all the core pieces that those apps use as well. So try this. Just open any app today and see if how much of you can recognize or understand V if V for classes, dynamic things. You'll be able to understand a lot.